They say it's impossible for one person to change the world. However, the hero of our story decided to prove everyone wrong. The Indian island of Majuli on the Brahmaputra River was the largest island in the world, with the unbelievable area of 1,100 square kilometers. However, everything changed in 1979. It was the year when a severe flood hit the island, affecting the lives of many local residents. The young man started thinking about how to prevent this from ever happening again. Even despite his young age, Jadav developed a successful plan. He wanted to plant trees near the village of Jorhat. I felt sorry for the animals, and I understood that radical measures had to be taken. However, I knew that I wouldn't be able to implement my ambitions plan alone, and I was naive enough to turn to the local government for help, Jadav once recalled. As you probably understood already, the authorities not only refused to support the boys' project, but rejected it altogether, saying that no plant would grow on the sandy shore, after which they simply asked the young man to leave the office. I remember feeling so humiliated after that conversation that I decided that I had to just prove them wrong. Oddly enough, Jadav wasn't about to give up on his goal. He decided to plant the trees on his own. The very next day, Jadav decided to check how plants would behave on the local sand, and he planted the first 20 bamboo seedlings. Even though everyone kept saying that nothing would come of it, the bamboo soon took root and even turned green. That marked the beginning of the young man's life mission. Thus, more and more seedlings were planted on the sandy shore every day, which Jadav did single-handedly, day after day, and even year after year. Over time, the once sandy desert territories turned into a green oasis. A few years later, seeing that the plants had taken root, the authorities changed their minds about the project and offered Jadav their apologies and their help. Of course, things went much faster with the support of the local administration, and they managed to plant over 200 hectares of forest during their cooperation. In the meantime, the man built a house in the newly planted forest and started tending to it regularly, planting new trees every day and expanding the forest area. Many years have passed since that time, but the man continues to engage in foresting this once lifeless territory. Today, the forest covers an area of 10 square kilometers. More than 1,000 species of trees have been planted there, attracting many different animals such as Bengal tigers, Indian rhinos, deer, rabbits, monkeys, and several species of birds, including vultures. Moreover, elephants from another part of the island come to stay there for half a year, and 13 elephant calves have even been born there since the forest was created.
In this month, last year, these villages are facing a drinking water problem, scarcity of a drinking water. Now you can see the ample of water.
And just in 1 year.
Just in 45 days.
45 days of work.
45 days work, not 1 year.
State of Maharashtra to see which village could install the most water harvesting structures in a 45-day period. There are many thousands of villages that have competed, and the resulting structures equate to over 145 billion gallons of water storage capacity built in just 4 years. By my estimation, that would make this the largest restoration project on the planet. I needed to see this for myself.
We are not putting a plastic sheet. Otherwise, percolation will not be happen.
Right.
Ha.
So this is for percolation and
This
not
is for
irrigation supply.
Yeah. Ha. This is for the percolation purpose. There is an outlet of a farm pond. Once it gets overflows, it flows from there. Again it will go downside into the CCTs.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the chain. This is the interlinking.
Yeah.
Few minutes back we walk from same area, na? But we never see a flowing water because it is undermined. Now it is get exposed. And this is the spring. You can watch it. This is the result.
So that's the basic science behind it. Water flowing during heavy rains is soaked into the ground in the upper watershed using various water harvesting structures. These structures create obstacles to the water flow, and then the water percolates down into the water table. When we go lower down in the watershed, That percolated water then surfaces as springs and a rising water table that fills ponds and waterways. The water is then pumped from ponds and wells to irrigate crops during the dry season. So now, villagers can grow wet season and dry season crops, and also have groundwater stored in reserve for when rains fail. This means that they do not need to import water in tankers or migrate away from the villages to find work when water is scarce. It means people stay in their villages with abundant food and a good farming income.
The fundamental structure of the government's work relief program in the Great Plains is construction of dams. Rain will fall, and when it falls, it must be saved. Water must be diverted to old waterways and empty basins. We have farmed and we have fought the drought with haphazard methods too long. Partial solution, little dams wherever there is a little water to be caught. Taken as a whole, these engineering and agricultural undertakings are almost incredible in their scope. Two concepts underlie the entire program. Give men the opportunity to work and let the results of their labor have permanent value.
I'm in the flat bottomland here, kind of a penny plain in the Sonora Desert, and it's not much fertility around. It's pretty sparse vegetation actually, and this here is an 80-year-old swale bank put in the Great Depression in the Roosevelt era, and it's a big one. And as I walk over the top, then you see this obvious event starts to happen. The trees get green and big, and the vegetation gets really lush. And this is something you need to really understand. So here, as we go into the lower trench of the swale, we go into a complete cover of vegetation. This is leaf amaranth, what they call in the Caribbean callaloo, and it's way taller than my head in places, and obviously indicating it's extremely fertile in here and very well watered. The trees are very lush, and it's a nutrient and water gathering system. There's a whole sequence of plants in here, and nobody planted these planted themselves. This is a self-replicating food garden that's quite old.
We came here in 2003, exactly 16 years ago, to a barren land, and slowly are turning it into a tropical dry evergreen forest, into the original forest of this area. When we came here, this area didn't have a blade of grass. There was absolutely nothing here. In this area, the soil was so compact that 15 minutes after a very heavy rain, I could drop a paper on the ground and it would stay completely dry, because it was just one compact slope going down and all the water would immediately run off the land. This area has 3 swales on the slope. They're all on contour and they're about 35 meters from each other. We have planted nothing here. We've just done the swale, we've dug it here in the trench and put the hump and left it, and it just became a sort of a forest on its own. Now there is zero runoff here. Basically, those swales are not even overflowing. The 100% of the rainwater that falls here is absorbed right here. In any condition, even in times of cyclone and very heavy torrential rain, 100% of the rainfall is absorbed in this area. You can almost never see water here because the soil is so soft that it just goes in. It's immediately absorbed.
Wow, it's not every day that you see a scene like this, an oasis of lush verdant green created by nature, facilitated by good design. This is a very special scene. No maintenance, 80 years of fertility accumulated by water designed to infiltrate into this arid landscape and create that scene. Outside, there's a hot, dry, dusty desert. In here, you couldn't believe you're in a desert. This is all green, lush and fertile and beautifully shaded and cool. Self-mulching, self-composting, soil creation. Look. Moist, crumbly.
The relentless grazing of domestic animals on the slopes meant that there was no chance for young trees and shrubs to grow. The rainfall no longer seeped into the earth, but simply washed down the hillsides, taking the soil with it. Over millennia, this progressively destroyed the region's fertility. These are the places where historically people have done agriculture and done animal husbandry for thousands of years. But the lands are exhausted. They allow hundreds and thousands of sheep and goats to walk across here, and any green thing that sticks up its head is food. And they're just walking around here getting everything. Well, you can't let them do that anymore. They'll have to stop. They've been doing that since thousands of years.
Almost 2 million shaggy-maned wildebeest share their home. Every year, the tough hooves of these animals will carry them almost 500 kilometers through Tanzania and Kenya in their constant search for fresh grass. Columns of animals 40 kilometers long can form as over 1 million wildebeest and hundreds of thousands of zebra and gazelle join together. As the dry land they leave behind turns to dust, the migrating masses of animals move further north in an ever-circling loop. The rains ahead of them come later, and the herbivores of the plains follow the green grasses they will bring.
They allow hundreds and thousands of sheep and goats to walk across here, and any green thing that sticks up its head is food. And they're just walking around here getting everything. Well, you can't let them do that anymore. They'll have to stop. They've been doing that since thousands of years, and that's what's destroyed this area. So if that doesn't stop, you won't be able to fix this.
As the dry land they leave behind turns to dust, the migrating masses of animals move further north in an ever-circling loop. The rains ahead of them come later, and the herbivores of the plains follow the green grasses they will bring.
Desertification control operation aiming to fighting back the desertification and land degradation here in Kubuchi. The reason why we're doing that is we're wanting to find a way to again restore the desert into a green oasis, and the way to doing that is we're wanting to adding organic matters back to the soil again, which has been lost 100 years ago. The reason for that is because the carbon being absorbed out of the soil by plants, all type of different plants, and then those plants being eaten up by animals by grazing activities, and then gradually it lost the carbon, released to the atmosphere or any other form.
The upper zones appeared to be primarily grasslands with rotational grazing of large herds of goats. The main structures used to harvest water here are called CCTs, or continuous contour trenches. These are the same structures that we call on-contour swales in the United States.
Initially, efforts focused on rain-fed croplands by building terraces and other soil and water conservation measures. Gradually, the rehabilitation works were extended to degraded, overgrazed communal areas. People realized that land could not be restored without managing livestock. So areas were enclosed, mostly by community agreement or social fencing. Land enclosure leads to better vegetative growth. Indigenous biodiversity returns, and carbon is captured in the soil and trees. The land becomes healthier. In turn, the improved vegetation can be cut and carried to feed the livestock.
The way we've done it is we excluded grazing for the first 3 years, and that worked out very well. And in that 3 years, this is when we discovered the species that came up on its own, which were thought to be extinct and was last recorded in the 1800s. It just came up on its own. So we allowed the land to breathe, to take a breath, and to see what's going on. We didn't interfere, we didn't do any planting at the time, just to see how it reacts, and that gave us a lot of feedback of how we can deal with or how to rehabilitate areas. So it was very efficient for us. And as you can see here, it's very overgrazed, it's very barren. This is outside our borders, and then within here you can see the difference.
Sequence of plants in here. And nobody planted these planted themselves. This is a self-replicating food garden that's quite old.
We have planted nothing here. We've just done the swell, we've dug it here in the trench and put the hump and left it. And it just became a sort of a forest on its own.
And in that 3 years, this is when we discovered the species that came up on its own, which were thought to be extinct and was last recorded in the 1800s. It just came up on its own. So we allowed the land to breathe, to take a breath, and to see what's going on. We didn't interfere, we didn't do any planting at the time, just to see how it reacts, and that gave us a lot of feedback of how we can deal with or how to rehabilitate areas.
Most of the trees came on their own. Most of the trees, I think, is the bird drops. That's the very beauty of the entire farm. I think lot of natural growth is happening after 10 years, but now it's the 20th year. 20th year, you can see it look like a mini forest.
The bounty at Aranya Farm is undeniable, full of food plants, native species, vegetable gardens, domestic animals, birds, flowers, and seeds. But the spectacular thing is how the water table has regenerated as the forest grew and the soil deepened. This is evident when we look at the hand-dug open well that supplies Aranya's now plentiful water.
When I came here, I think this totally bedrock, only little amount of soil all around the well. You can see the depth of the soil, only just 6 to 8 inches soil. The roots are penetrating into the hard rock, making small cracks. I think they totally started going inside and breaking the rock. On this farm, I think I'm maintaining the water table because of planting trees, not only few trees, but not only trees, different sizes, and the small bushes and shrubs and trees and plants all together. I think the root system, the network in the ground, that will hold more water. The water table has been maintaining since last 20 years. But over a period of 6 or 7, I could see a lot of water in the well. That's the indicator of your harvesting water through plants. Each plant is holding water. After saturation, when it reaches saturation, they are releasing water into the open wells like this. I think that's a great indicator. It's happened within just 10 years. Now is the 20th year. I have plenty of water. I never short of water at all on this farm. Totally it's a sheet rock where water cannot be even sink and impounded into the soil. Considered as a wasteland in this region. Even government records also it's called a wasteland. The wastelands are not wastelands, they're wasted lands. That's the slogan I have taken. It's always wasted lands. We wasted it, not a wasteland.
Of Detroit, currently there are over 20,000 vacant lots. That means there is land that is empty, that originally housed businesses or homes that were demolished over time, and they are just sitting.
It's very vibrant and it feels thriving.
Yeah.
And like you're walking around other like streets and it's just like a little bit like, you can see some buildings that might look a little dilapidated and run down. And then you get here and it seems like a thriving space.
Yeah.
You know, there's like all these fresh plants. It's really cool. Like, really, really a cool thing to witness. And like, I want to see more stuff like this in the cities that I visit.
It was a kind of a rundown apartment building back in 2007. Imagine 14 or 15 years ago, this was a giant parking lot and there was just crew-cut grass on either side of that. So when we started, the grounds were totally bare. Okay, grass, we're talking grass, pavement, and a few ornamental shrubs that were pretty pathetic. No fruits or anything like that. So let's walk into the circular garden. But it had a big space for garden. So right here is the center, and what makes a circular garden so unique is that from this one point you can irrigate a vast area very, very easily. This space is gardened by our group gardens program. We have about 20 families gardening together and growing things that you wouldn't normally grow in your own individual garden plot. For example, squashes. You can see a lot of space is taken up by squash, and you wouldn't have that space to do something like that in your own garden. Okay, we have carrots and peppers, sunflowers, chard, cabbage, cauliflower, and broccoli. You can kind of see the fruit trees here. Look at the fruit trees, they're just totally loaded. These are the ground falls that we picked up so far, and they may look a little dubious, but actually these are great for apple pies, apple sauce. You can dry these too if you wanted to. So we get a huge bounty of fruits here.
And you planted all these?
We planted all these, yeah, right. So when we started out, this was just grass here in the planting strips. And from here up to the building was a parking lot in the middle, and then grass and gravel on each side. There were a few ornamental shrubs right at the base of the building, but it was essentially just a big, open, kind of dead space. And you can see once you depave, we depaved the parking lot there, and now it's a fabulous garden.
Here in the bed of the Santa Cruz River in the middle of Tucson, we're in a completely dry, eroded, incised riverbed. It's incised down below the original floodplain. Less than 100 years ago, this was a permanent flowing river. For thousands of years, up to 4,000 years, there's been gravity irrigated agriculture on the floodplain here, but we've drawn down the water table. We've controlled the banks. We've paved the floodplain and reduced the soakage, and now the river's dead. It's just a massive flood and in a continuous drought. It's out of function. And this canal behind me is coming for more than 300 miles as an open canal from the Colorado River, where it's already a little bit salty in its origin. On the way, it gets jacked up like this, more than 3,000 feet in elevation to arrive at this point, all the way in open sun evaporating. So by the time it gets here, it's even more salty. That electricity used to jack that water up is the largest consumer of electricity in the state of Arizona. And because that electricity comes from a coal-fired power station on Navajo land, it is the largest emitter of carbon into the atmosphere, just for the pumping of this water up to this point. Now, that water cannot be taken to its main use endpoint, which is Tucson, because it's too high in minerals. So, and the pH is too out of balance at this stage. So it's recharged here into this valley to recharge the aquifer, which is increasing in salt. In fact, in the last 10 years, it's doubled.
The first primary activity which they did was to harvest the rainwater. This kind of trenches did in all the women's farmers' fields. And then on the top of the bunds, they sow the seed. On the bunds also, on the rocky area also, they could able to grow something. She planted the mango tree, and also she has done the water harvesting within the plant, because it's all rocky area. The water is coming from there, and she could able to stop the water, and water can stay for longer time to the fruit trees. And at the same time, and she has done the mulching to hold the moisture for long time, using the same moisture for to grow the vegetables like tomato, chilies, and she is showing the moisture. If you do the mulching, how the moisture looks like. All of the farmers collectively bringing the water to the tanker and putting into the tank, and from there these people are using the bucket and giving the water to the plants. If you see the crescent structure, the slope is from that side, water is coming here and staying for a long time. So she could able to I think 7 months she has not given any irrigation to the plants, even though she could able to grow because of the water harvesting.
So essentially, they identified an area where there was a little bit of soil amongst the bedrock and dug that out to form a crescent-shaped berm that would intercept the rainwater sheeting off of the bedrock. A mango tree was planted in the basin with vegetables surrounding it, and the area was heavily mulched to retain moisture. Another method is to carve out a simple trench that is placed perpendicular to the flow of water. The soil is mounded to create a berm below the trench, and in that loose soil, seeds are sown. When monsoon rains fill the trench, seeds come up in the soft soil and grow from the residual moisture that is soaked in by the trench. Harvesting water in trenches and growing crops on the tops of berms is a recurring pattern, and they've really developed this method to help with the transition of wastelands into productive farms.
Well, previously, this is fully barren land. What is our plan is to make independent this plot in terms of water. More than 125 people of this hamlet, of this village are actually getting benefit for this overall watershed management project. So what is the result we are seeing here? That there is a seepage and they are using this runoff water for paddy cultivation. We have planned for a series of this kind of large water harvesting structure. They have planned for fisheries and growing season extension also.
The water seeping at the bottom of this project is the result of the work done at the top. The real innovative part of this project is up the hill and at the top, where DRCSC is using a technique that was developed by a team of NGOs called the 30-40 model for turning a barren ridge back into a diverse forest.
We are at the top, we are at the ridge area right now. So what is watershed? We have to collect all the runoffs from ridge to valley. There is no kind of a structure to harvest the rainfall, no kind of a structure to harvest the runoff. So there is less productivity, there is crop failure thing. Previously it was a fully barren land. There is nothing, no crop, no productivity, nothing. But after doing 30-40 models, you can see here there is a huge number of biomass. More than 20,000 plants are there in this 12-hectare area. There is biodiversity also bring back this area. The native people, they are collecting some native foods from this, some mushrooms, rodents and rabbits for their daily livelihood. And they use this kind of a bushes for their cattle, for the cattle feed.
They placed a grid over the landscape, dividing the ground into sections that are 30 feet on one side and 40 feet on the other. The sections are divided by mounds, and in the corner of each section there is a soakage pit. So when the heavy monsoon rains fall, the runoff hits the berms and soaks into the ground, with any excess runoff being diverted to the soakage pit. This way, None of the runoff leaves the 30 by 40 area and is all soaked into the ground, supporting a wide diversity of drought-tolerant, seasonal, and perennial plant species.
This is the water harvesting pit. I'm standing. This is a typical pit, and you can see this is the 30-40 area. This is the band of a 40-feet interval, and this is the band of another 30-feet interval. So we are in a 1200 square feet area. So what is the science behind it? All the runoff, all the excess water of this 1200 square feet, it directly seeps down to this pit. We have to make the plants independent of outside water. These plants directly have the water from these recharge pits.
Creating stable water supplies creates stable food supplies and stable villages, communities, and society.
Vacant land around Detroit, abandoned houses, things like that. And then the second one is the food insecurity issue. So you might have heard of Detroit being called the food desert. So people don't have access or availability or the means to get nutritious foods all year round. So we try to tackle those challenges. How we do that is we have this urban farm here. So we have 3 acres of land in total. The farmland that you can see right now is 1 acre. And on this farm, we have 300 different varieties of produce growing. And since 2011, we've given out over 100,000 pounds of produce to over 2,000 households in a 2.5 mile square radius. So we've given out a lot, and every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's when we give out the produce, and it's all free. So anyone from the Detroit city or area can come into our farm and pick up the produce.
So this is the first part of the garden. I could call it the first phase of the garden. This is where the vegetables and the fruits and flowers are planted, and all around the perimeter you'll see all different kinds of flowers that are either native to Michigan or they bring in the beneficial insects and pollinators that will help with not only the food but just the ecosystem in general. So the focus was to bring in bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, and I have seen all 3 so far.
The changes are not simply on the hillsides. On the plains, you can see greenhouses that are filled with vegetables. This extends the growing season. It's very high value produce. The abundance and variety of new produce can be seen in the local markets. Follow-up studies have shown that incomes have risen 3-fold.
So income has doubled and expenditure has become half. So that is how they see their experience.
Okay.
The farmers used to produce only 8 quintals of grain per hectare before, but now they can produce from 20 to 32 quintals.
In less than 10 years, 10 million hectares have been improved through enclosure. 15 million hectares have been treated with conservation measures, and at least 30 million people have benefited from the program. The environment has profited too. Biodiversity is back. Once more, it's a living landscape. The State Minister sees the approach as integral to a new national strategy.
This climate resilient green economy strategy helps the country, and also there is a sign that it is helping to ensure greening the country. This will help ensure food security of the country and the poverty reduction.
Ethiopia has a clear roadmap for the future, and there's a buzz of excitement and a feeling of pride on this journey into a greener and better fed future.
It all started in 1995 when John D. Liu, as an ordinary cameraman, got an assignment to film the Lush Plateau in China. He saw how the local people transformed an area almost the size of the Netherlands from a barren, exhausted desert into a large green oasis. He was baffled. From that moment on, greening deserts became his goal in life.
Not even there is no grasses, is not even blade of grass is not growing on this rocky area. But now is a war of almost 20-25 years. Now it is totally full lush green. They started agriculture on this land after 10 years. That's how the transformation taken place. By doing this, I got a lot of confidence. Any land, any kind of soil can be transformed within 2 to 3 years. Any land, any kind of soil can be transformed within 2 to 3 years. Any land, any kind of soil can be transformed within 2 to 3 years.
The way we've done it is we excluded grazing for the first 3 years, and that worked out very well. And in that 3 years, this is when we discovered the species that came up on its own, which were thought to be extinct and was last recorded in the 1800s. It just came up on its own. The way we've done it is we excluded grazing for the first 3 years, and that worked out very well. And in that 3 years, this is when we discovered the species that came up on its own, which were thought to be extinct and was last recorded in the 1800s. It just came up on its own.
In this month, last year, these villages are facing a drinking water problem, scarcity of a drinking water. Now you can see the ample of water.
In just in 1 year.
Just in 45 days.
45 days of work.
45 days work, not 1 year.
In just in 1 year.
Just in 45 days.
45 days of work.
45 days work, not 1 year.
In just in 1 year.
Just in 45 days.
45 days of work.
45 days work, not 1 year.
मॉनसून का आगमन हुआ और इस साल बारिश में कुछ खास बात हुई। लोगों के इस पराक्रम को देखकर इस साल भर से पानी ने उनके द्वारा बनाई गई संरचनाओं में ठहरकर जैसे उनके श्रम और शिल्प को सलाम किया। पानी लोगों से मिलकर और लोग पानी से मिलकर खुशी से झूम उठे।
हा खूप मोठा आनंद आहे, आत्मिक आनंद ज्याला म्हणायचं की आम्ही केलेलं श्रमदान आहे, आमच्या घामातून ते मिळालेलं पाणी आम्हाला आहे, त्या पाण्याची चव मात्र खूप वेगळी आम्हाला मिळाली।
लोगों ने सूखे से लड़ने की अपनी आंतरिक शक्ति को पहचान लिया और पानी के साथ एक नया नाता बनाया।
मैंने ऐसे लोग देखे 2-2 घंटे सिर्फ पानी देखते हैं, क्योंकि देखा नहीं इतना पानी, अपने गांव में इतना पानी, तो लोगों में एक आस्था तैयार हुई है, उसके प्रति लगाव तैयार हुआ है। और ये जो ओनरशिप है, ये जल, जमीन, जंगल, प्राणी और पर्यावरण, ये मेरा है। लोगों में आत्मविश्वास पैदा हो गया कि सरकार की आवश्यकता नहीं है, हम अपने बलबूते पर अपने गांव को जलयुक्त कर सकते हैं। और मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि इससे अच्छी बात लोकतंत्र में दूसरी नहीं हो सकती।
The sounds of heavy equipment moving earth is not that unusual in the southern coal fields of West Virginia, but on a mountaintop in Mingo County, there's a new sound and a new machine that's turning reclaimed mine sites into farm fields. The DEP's Mike Huff has the details.
Seems like a jet fighter cockpit.
This is no ordinary piece of farm equipment. Welcome aboard the SEPI Super Soil Stone Crusher. That's Nathan Hall, president of Reclaim Appalachia, at the controls of all this noise and vibration. And what he's doing is turning this into this. But first, a little background.
There are hundreds of thousands of acres of land throughout Central Appalachia and West Virginia, Virginia and Kentucky that have been surface mined and reclaimed over the past 30 to 40 years. And really only a small fraction of that is in what I would consider active production of any type, really, especially in terms of really productive agriculture. And so it's been my mission for the past several years to find out what is the most effective and cost-effective way to take these many times very large landscapes and convert them into much more farmable lands.
Reclaimed surface mines tend to have very compacted and rocky soils with a lot of large stones close to the surface. Not ideal for large-scale agriculture.
And so if you were to try to go back to it with any type of typical tillage equipment like a rototiller or a disc or a chisel plow, you'll either break that equipment very quickly or it just won't even go in the ground at all.
Enter the stone crusher. It was built to take on the rocky soils of Europe and can pulverize rocks up to 16 to 20 inches in diameter. Before the stone crusher does its thing, crews use a ripper attachment to break up the soil and bring the larger rocks to the surface. The ones that are too big for the stone crusher are shoved into windrows or broken up into more manageable sizes with an excavator and a jackhammer attachment. And then it's time to fire up the stone crusher and help speed up the geologic time scale.
500,000 year process and do it in about 5 minutes. 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 So if you think about it, it's really the same as just breaking down rocks from wind and rain and natural processes, which is how soil is made in the first place. We're just doing all that mechanically and very quickly.
This is the second trip to Coalfield Development Corporation's agroforestry test site at 22 Mine Road in Mingo County. The group used the stone crusher last November to condition a small test plot, about 1/5 of an acre, that was planted this spring with a variety of crops, cut flowers, vegetables, and berries, as proof of concept that land prepped like this could support a variety of plants. They also planted some cover crops that will be plowed back under to help introduce organic matter back into the soil.
Immediately after using the stone crusher, we're planting that into a mix of buckwheat and soybeans and sorghum sudan grass, and then we'll till that in, and then we'll replant in mid to late September with a mix of wheat and Austrian winter peas and vetch and things of that nature. So by doing that continuous cycling of cover crops as well as bringing in some organic matter, I think we can really quickly have soils that rival your high quality bottomland soils. If you go to any existing reclaimed mine site, you see blackberries galore and also wild raspberries. So to me that shows that these plants already do really well. These are kind of natural pioneers. Commercial blackberry and raspberry farming is quite profitable. So I think that's one of the really suitable types of high value crop production are the bramble fruits. Also grapes really like stony kind of semi-arid conditions. So I think viticulture is definitely a possibility in these lands. Lavender is kind of a Mediterranean plant that likes rocky kind of well-drained soils.
This summer's demonstration conditioned about 15 acres in about 100 hours of stone crusher operations. So the process does seem to be scalable to larger plots of land. So the process does seem to be scalable to larger plots of land. So the process does seem to be scalable to larger plots of land.
In Western Australia, there are areas of whole rock slabs called laterite, where the soil is completely unfarmable as the seed cannot be planted within the area. The reefinator is an implement that is towed behind a tractor that converts shallow rocky soil into a workable surface for both cropping and road bases.
It acts a lot like a giant cheese grater, and it grates that rock off a layer at a time, so it's manageable for a machine to do. The reefinator is designed to just peel away at the rock, so it's a multi-pass high-speed machine. And fortunately, most of the laterite is actually quite thin, the cap, so 2 or 3 or 4 passes will get it to a nice farmable state. A grinding machine would do about 1 hectare in a day. This machine will do approximately 10 to 20 hectares in a day, and at a lower cost per day.
The reefinator is suitable for most laterite rock, limestone, sandstone and shale rocks. The result is crushed stone mixed in with soil, which is an ideal mix for growing a wide variety of crops.
Right, and it's far more cost effective. It's more than 10 to 1, so it's huge.
यहाँ पर ये जो हमारा मुख्य प्राथमिकता तो एफॉरेस्टेशन ही है, जिसमें हमारा रूबिनिया नंबर 1 पर है यहाँ पर संख्या के हिसाब से। दूसरे नंबर पर आता है विलो पॉपुलर। उसके बाद वाइल्ड लाइफ रिकॉर्ड भी का भी अपना स्थान है। वाइल्ड लाइफ रिकॉर्ड भी आपने देखा बहुत लगाया हमने। जहाँ तक आपका फलदार पौधे या आपका क्या नाम मटर फसल इत्यादि के बारे में बात है, तो हमने ये जस्ट डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन के लिए लगाया है ताकि लोग भी यहाँ पर आके खेती करें। 170 जमींदारों को यहाँ पर नोतोड़ दिया गया है सरकार ने। आपने देखा कि अभी जो है ना कुछ जमींदार हमारे काम को रिप्लिकेट कर रहे हैं, तो उम्मीद है कि आने वाले समय में जो है यहाँ पर एक नया बस्ती बस जाएगा, जो कि गवर्नमेंट का एक मुख्य लक्ष्य था।
But gradually we notice under the solar panel there are some grass coming out of the desert, and then we realize probably under the panel there are opportunities for eco-farming. And then we started to do a lot of experiments to try if there are any elements can coming out of the desert because of the shading effects provided by solar panel. And then we noticed the licorice and tomatoes can be planted as a way to improve the soil conditions in the desert, because the organic matter is being added to the soil from the debris and roots of those crops. So gradually we noticed this is a very beneficial way to utilize the natural land resources, but at the same time to combat the desertification.
你好，您现在是在挖什么呢？
挖土豆。
哦。
啊。
挺大个的啊。So they are digging up the potatoes in the sand. 您是本地人吗？
啊，本地人。
那今年这个收成怎么样？
就是豆腐啊，原香。
So she's from local, and she will have a fairly good harvest this year. So you can see this is the potato growing
from the desert.
Yeah, out of the sand from the desert.
That you see a scene like this, an oasis of lush verdant green created by nature, facilitated by good design. This is a very special scene. No maintenance, 80 years of fertility accumulated by water, designed to infiltrate into this arid landscape and create that scene. Outside, there's a hot, dry, dusty desert. In here, you couldn't believe you're in a desert. This is all green, lush and fertile and beautifully shaded and cool. Self-mulching, self-composting, soil creation. Look. Moist, crumbly.
The integrated energy system is the first industrial-scale concentrated solar power technology enabling year-round horticultural activities in the Australian desert and contributing to the production of 17 million kilograms of sustainable tomatoes a year. This accounts for 15% of Australia's entire tomato market.
The way that this system produces and stores its energy has been designed with minimum maintenance and operational costs in mind. There's 23,000 mirrors in the field behind us which focus on a tower which is 127 metres tall, produces intense heat which we then use to desalinate the water which is taken from the Spencer Gulf. It's stored as heat which is used to heat the greenhouses and then to run the steam turbine which produces the electricity.
The integrated energy system is about creating a transition towards another world which relies more on renewable than on fossil, because that's going to help the environment. The key here is to lower the cost.
The sun delivers more energy to Earth in an hour than we use in a year from other resources combined.
You can almost conclude and say, wherever there's salt water and a lot of sun, there's a basis for building these kinds of plants, and that's a big part of the world.
Ethiopia has a clear roadmap for the future, and there's a buzz of excitement and a feeling of pride on this journey into a greener and better fed future.
Water supplies create stable food supplies and stable villages, communities, and society. Water supplies create stable food supplies and stable villages, communities, and society. Water supplies create stable food supplies and stable villages, communities, and society.
Follow-up studies have shown that incomes have risen threefold. Follow-up studies have shown that incomes have risen threefold. Follow-up studies have shown that incomes have risen threefold.
So income has doubled and expenditure has become half. So income has doubled and expenditure has become half. So income has doubled and expenditure has become half.
This will help ensure food security of the country and the poverty reduction. This will help ensure food security of the country and the poverty reduction. This will help ensure food security of the country and the poverty reduction.
Now, a lot, and every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's when we give out the produce, and it's all free. So anyone from the Detroit city or area can come into our farm and pick up the produce. Now, a lot, and every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's when we give out the produce, and it's all free. So anyone from the Detroit city or area can come into our farm and pick up the produce. Now, a lot, and every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's when we give out the produce, and it's all free. So anyone from the Detroit city or area can come into our farm and pick up the produce.
With the Amazon and Congo basins, these forests serve as the lungs of the planet. And in Papua, they are the lifeblood of the people.
Dan yang terutama yang membuat saya sangat terkesan itu karena hutan di Papua itu memberi banyak kehidupan untuk masyarakat di Papua. Jadi sumber kehidupan mereka itu sebetulnya di hutan.
Banyak selukai lewa hutan itu no sop selukai memang tuma wencap tuma arane no ne bisa punya tumi tiai cem punya tuncita dinjam ti cem punya tu hok tu no koindamnya tu hok tu no kai cem.
Most of the trees have came on their own. Most of the trees, I think, is the bird drops. Most of the trees have came on their own. Most of the trees, I think, is the bird drops. Most of the trees have came on their own. Most of the trees, I think, is the bird drops.
bird that I've got on the screen, isn't that bird beautiful? That's a Kia parrot from New Zealand. Isn't he absolutely breathtaking and gorgeous? Well, there he is pecking deep inside of the skin of something that he's just killed, swooped down and killed with his friends. Here he is pulling the innards out of a living sheep as they swoop down and begin to peck. Look at the size of the beak on that thing. He can chomp in, he can even kill a person. They would come in as flocks, and farmers in New Zealand were angry that these things were killing their flocks of sheep. Was it these birds that had come to be known as the vampire parrots at that point? Well, their food source, the food source they had, the vegetables and the fruits that they enjoyed to eat, had been taken away from them, had been mulled out of the way. So these were not vampire birds. What they were was desperate birds that were now going to any length to survive, which is what happens as food sources begin to go away. When they begin to replant the food source, the vegetable food sources for these birds, they immediately left the sheep alone.
All the borewells are get recharged. And another important thing is that you can hear a voice of the animals, birds. You can hear this voice, which is not heard few years back, because totally it is a dry land. Now from couple of years we preserve all this forest land, and that's why the ecosystem also now changing.
More than 1,000 species of trees have been planted there, attracting many different animals such as Bengal tigers, Indian rhinos, deer, rabbits, monkeys, and several species of birds, including vultures. Moreover, elephants from another part of the island come to stay there for half a year, and 13 elephant calves have even been born there since the forest was created.
Are either native to Michigan, or they bring in the beneficial insects and pollinators that will help with not only the food but just the ecosystem in general. So the focus was to bring in bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, and I have seen all three so far.
My drawing here is in the northern hemisphere, far enough away from the equator where you have a distinct winter and summer seasons. If you're in the southern hemisphere, then you just flip the compass. Now I've drawn every house so it's elongated to the east and west and facing the south. This is passive solar design 101. So when the sun is lower on the horizon during the winter, the house is oriented to receive the maximum amount of winter sunlight for solar heating and natural lighting. Then in the summertime, when the sun is more directly overhead, windows are shaded by this roof overhang, and the smallest side of the building faces the rising sun to the east and the hot setting sun to the west. So the buildings remain cooler inside. And then the south-facing side of the roof is also a great place to put solar panels. And then the south side of the house is also a really great place for a veggie garden, where you can gaze out of your sun-facing windows and see your food growing abundantly from the compost you produce from your house. And the water for those gardens can be provided by collecting rainwater right off of the roof. Now, tanks can provide privacy between neighbors, and they'll also store the heat of the sun when it's hot, and then they'll radiate it back out to the gardens when it's cool. But a water tank will not store all of the rainfall from roofs in most climates. So there's going to be excess overflow from these tanks. And there's also going to be excess water running off of all the roadways and any other impermeable hard surfaces during rainfall. So if the water from the roads is flowing this direction, then on the north or the shady side of the houses, we can dig out a big sunken basin for all of this excess rainwater to collect into. So with all of that stormwater runoff directed into these big basins, it's a great place to plant your permaculture food forest. Trees can grow big and provide nuts, fruits, berries, leaf mulch, wood, and habitat while being located where they'll not block the sun for the next row of houses. So here we have house, garden, food forest swale, house, garden, road, house, garden, food forest swale, house, garden, road. See, we reduced the number of roads by half, similar to a conventional housing development, but instead of a back fence or an alley where the two properties meet, we put a common water harvesting swale with a community pathway. And we also made the food forest and gardens bigger than we did in this other drawing. So you can see I drew in this little community pathway. Now in this design, all the excess runoff from roads, roofs, pathways, and patios, it drains into these common swales that can be planted with fruits, nuts, and different kind of awesome plants of all kinds. That's actually exactly the design that you see on the most excellent housing development called Village Homes in Davis, California. Although many homes did place trees due south of the houses, which will reduce the sunlight they receive in wintertime. But winters are pretty warm where this place is located in California. But why even stick to the grid at all? We can create neighborhoods where all the houses are oriented for passive solar and center around a common community farm area. All right, so here the runoff collects in a central pond in the center of a south-facing arc of homes. And the food forest swale goes around the backside of the houses to the north, with the roads completely on the margins and then agriculture in the center. But what if our neighborhood is not on flat land at all? So on a slope, a neighborhood can be built along a contour line around a water harvesting pond. The roadway can be arranged so it's also directing water into the pond, and houses are built around the pond, which reflects more light into the buildings in wintertime when the sun is low on the horizon and shines on the pond. Okay, so you get the idea. We can keep on going and going, drawing different patterns of settlement which work intelligently with the light, water, slope, and access. In permaculture, every site is recognized for its unique characteristics. So every design is specific to its place. There's no one way to design a permaculture neighborhood, and the possibilities are literally endless.
At Community First Village, we are creating a new movement for how we care for the chronically homeless, how we lift them off the streets into a community that they can call home for the rest of their lives. We are pushing the envelope. We are not afraid to be entrepreneurial and do things that have never been done before.
Vulnerable communities are almost never the first people to get access to breakthroughs in technology. And what we get to do here is deploy these breakthroughs in the service of humanity.
Oh! If you want to see the most extraordinary movement in building community, you need to come to Austin, Texas.
There she is. This is my new home, upcoming home.
Today we're going to meet Tim, who is going to be one of the first human beings ever to live in a 3D printed house.
I'm excited because this afternoon I'll be able to go and actually get on the premises, go actually touch it. I don't know what to expect, but I'm ready. You know, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm psyched. What's up, neighbor?
We started 21 years ago, very simply going out on the streets to feed people. But what we're doing is taking those trucks out there to create relationships, to hear their story. We realize that when we create community, that's how we make ourselves whole. The way that the homeless system works in the United States, it is purely a transactional model. A meal, an apartment, a job. But for someone who has been homeless 5, 10, 15 years, they have experienced so much trauma. Those are the folks that most cities across the country just don't have a great plan for how to serve them.
That led us to build a village. It was designed to lift the chronically homeless of Austin, Texas up off the streets.
We firmly believe that the single greatest cause of homelessness is the profound, catastrophic loss of family. And one of the most important things that we do is create family.
The housing of the future has to be different than the housing of our past. Icon is a construction technology company born out of a frustration with what's going on in the housing industry. It's very wasteful, it's very slow. With 3D printing, we have a pathway to deliver half-price homes in half the time. We are not there yet, but that's the kind of order of magnitude we need as we approach solving issues like homelessness. So once the printer's set up, the operator pulls up sort of an app store for houses. He selects what he wants to print, and you press print. And they monitor it, but the printer really is running on autopilot. And layer upon layer, the house is built up on site from the ground up.
We firmly believe that housing alone will never solve homelessness, but community will. No one even knows where this will go. But right now, we are bringing people together.
We're going to need more than just the housing. We're going to have to show up with our full humanity as we tackle problems like this.
Hey, man.
Hey, brother.
Yeah, my brother from another mother, Tim.
Jason, Tim.
Can we go inside?
Yeah, come
After
on.
you.
Let's do
This
it.
is your house.
Look at this, how big it is. Sit out here and look at the sunset. Oh, my Lord. Amazing.
Yeah.
This is an honor.
Thank you, brother.
I can't wait for you to make this place a home. This is how I want to live my life, in partnership with people solving problems like this. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It makes me proud to be a human.
My name is Tim, and I live in a 3D printed house. What I love most about living in my 3D printed house is it's a sense of security. It's a sense of that I've settled somewhere. And it's such a, has such a way of embracing me. I feel like I'm embraced in this house. It has all the, no real tight corners, it's rounded. It just feels like it envelops me. And I just love just sitting in there and just looking at the interior of it. It's just very comfortable, very warming, welcoming place. And I'm so proud to be living here in this 3D printed house. It's just a miracle to me to be living in a house this beautiful. And I hope I stay here till my last dying day, I'll tell you that. There's nothing about this house that I don't love. And I could never have imagined from where I came from that I would ever have this beautiful a place to live in. And I'm so thankful to Community First Village and ICON for this wonderful, innovative project.
A world choking on waste and running out of resources. Something has to change.
How can we design an economy where we don't waste all these resources?
Meet the people grabbing opportunities around the world in a new way of doing business where nothing goes to waste. The circular economy will change how we use everyday products and our urban landscape. It could bring massive environmental and financial benefits.
This is just the beginning of really being able to solve a global problem.
Half a world away, an influential think tank is promoting a more circular approach.
We extract more resources from our planet than our planet can replenish. So we need 1.6 Earths to be able to feed all of us, but also to provide resources. And that's the problem. We don't have 1.6 Earths. We have one planet Earth. Almost everything we make in this economy is designed for a throwaway culture. Almost everything gets either burned, dumped, or landfilled. And not only are we throwing away a lot of resources, but we waste also a lot of money.
The Foundation estimates the world economy would benefit by trillions of dollars if we changed our relationship with resources and products.
The circular economy is based on 3 key principles: design out waste and pollution, keep materials in use, and regenerate natural systems. And when you apply these principles, there's an opportunity to capture this multi-trillion economic opportunity while also tackling some of the biggest challenges that we face today around climate change, biodiversity loss, and plastic pollution.
Hey guys, my name is Jason with Mount Baker Mining and Metals, and on today's video we're going to be crushing some recycled glass through our glass crushing line behind us. And the goal here is to reduce the volume and also to crush them up and try and liberate the aluminum and the steel pieces and the plastic caps from the bottles, that they can then further be processed down the line once they're separated from the glass. So I'll run it through our machine and we'll show you what happens. But that screen takes up 180 degrees along the bottom of the hammer mill. So you have a lot of screen surface. So we'll get this installed and we'll crush some more glass and get it finer.
Every time you pass a pile of plastics, you pass a job opportunity.
At a first glance, this garage doesn't look like a factory, but more like a scrapyard. However, these young Africans have found success as they convert plastic waste to bricks for construction.
Here is now transferring the plastics inside. As you can see, it's turning to color black. So why it's black is because the plastics are burning. So it burns to an extent where it has reached its elastic limit. So then we can start putting the sand inside. So as we keep putting plastics, we wait till everything is liquid. So right now it's getting to about 260 degrees. So as it's pouring the sand into the mixture, it gets kind of thick. So constantly we keep stirring over and over and over again. So it gets to that viscous level because we just observe to an extent where we know, okay, it's ready for us to pour inside. So we shake it for any air molecules to escape. From the few tests we conducted, the compressive strength was 3 times higher than the normal concrete bricks, which means you can use these bricks for bridges, for construction sites that required a lot of machines that have a lot of weight, because in different parts of certain communities, you have a lot of machines go there and they damage the road. So if you have a brick this strong in those areas, which means that it would increase the lifespan, it will increase the duration to which there is road maintenance.
This is melted plastic mixed with sand.
It has to look like poo. Ideally speaking, it's very visual like that.
And it becomes as hard as concrete once a hydraulic press squeezes it into shape. A company in Nairobi wants to install these plastic bricks on streets across Kenya's capital. Could they become a solution for a country where 90% of roads have never been paved? We went to Nairobi to meet the young inventor making bricks out of worldwide waste. Nzambe Mate opened her company, Jijenge Makers, in 2018.
So Jijenge is a Swahili word which translates to build yourself.
The factory processes 3 of the 7 types of single-use plastics.
Here on my right, these are the hard plastics, and here on my left, these are the soft plastics.
Kenya has one of the world's toughest bans on plastic bags, but bottles and other containers are still everywhere. This is where workers sort them. They can handle about 10 metric tons of plastic every month.
So this is the guy who starts our production. Without him, we are nothing. So big up.
Vinny operates the crusher, which pulverizes plastic into small pieces.
Just crushes it very loud.
Workers fold the dry mix together with a shovel.
Depending on the color you want, this is a stage at which you put the color pigment. And then after that, it's fed on the extruder.
This machine heats the plastic and sand mixture until it's soft enough to mold.
This is one of my proudest moments as a person, as a team member, and also as the founder of Jijenge. So what you see here, the machine and all the others, we fabricated here in Jijenge. It is mixed together at very high temperatures. So it ranges anything from 300 to 400 degrees centigrade, where it mixes that plastic and sand and forms a gooey, like a dough-like material. And that's what we make the brick with.
Each lump of the mixture is weighed by hand. People say the smell is something like new asphalt on a hot day.
So the brick currently Joseph is producing is a 1.3 kilogram. So that's what he's measuring. He's measuring 1.3 kilogram of the mixture.
This hydraulic press can squeeze 9 bricks at a time.
Ideally speaking, it's like baking a cookies. And this here is Lawrence. He's the guy with the magic touch, so I'll let him do his thing.
At this point, the bricks need to cool, so they can harden at room temperature.
So here's the curing bay. So once we take from the hydraulic press, we feed it in the curing bay, and then after like about 2 to 5 minutes, you have a finished product.
Many bricks come off the press with jagged edges. A worker breaks them off on a large stone before adding the finished bricks to a stack. For now, Jijenge's output is modest.
We need to increase our production to mass produce what we are doing currently. Right now we are doing like around 1,500 blocks a day.
That's about enough bricks to cover a courtyard, like the one at this community center.
For me, I think the price is cheaper and affordable compared to other materials used to make pavements.
A pallet of 400 plastic pavers can sell for up to $150, depending on thickness. The company says that's about 25% cheaper than bricks made from concrete.
We're also working on manhole covers. The other one is roofing tiles. The other one is drainage gutters. And also in addition to that, we're targeting also to improve and optimize the technology. Because I get the feeling we are only doing like a really small portion of it, and there's so much potential that this technology has that we are yet to realize, and this is just the beginning. And optimize the technology. Because I get the feeling we are only doing like a really small portion of it, and there's so much potential that this technology has that we are yet to realize, and this is just the beginning. And optimize the technology. Because I get the feeling we are only doing like a really small portion of it, and there's so much potential that this technology has that we are yet to realize, and this is just the beginning.
This is melted plastic mixed with sand.
It has to look like poo. Ideally speaking, it's very visual like that.
And it becomes as hard as concrete.
We are not afraid to be entrepreneurial and do things that have never been done before.
Vulnerable communities are almost never the first people to get access to breakthroughs in technology. And what we get to do here is deploy these breakthroughs in the service of humanity.
Oh!
And optimize the technology, because I get the feeling we are only doing like a really small portion of it, and there's so much potential that this technology has that we are yet to realize, and this is just the beginning.
Welcome to My Dots Print. This was printed by one of our customers and training groups. They print them, and we tear them down, and we start all over again a month later with the next training group. So we have 2 different training groups working on this one, and you'll see this, our print is the final product. Okay? Top to bottom, we don't cover it up, we don't plaster it, we don't fur it out. We can do some cool design elements like this, but that is our print because it's the process. You got to have a process. It doesn't take a month to build a house. You got to be able to print a house in a day. Otherwise, it's not faster, cheaper, better. So the outside of this and just a little bit over there, we finished the wall while we were printing. This is an additive material. It's just to give it a couple different designs. Come on in. So again, this is just a little mini home for the state. They got to build about 700 of these. We had 20 people from the state legislature that came down for this. One of our Utah customers that purchased our printer, they printed this, and you know, all the expense of, you're looking at a 2-week build, a day of printing, and then to finish out everything. Again, our walls were finished while we were printing, clear to the top. Came back the next day, sprayed it with top coat, put an orange peel on this. Our customers have the CNC drawings for this kind of cabinetry. I mean, round corners are nice until you start buying cabinets and countertop. So we give them the CNC drawings so that they can throw a piece of corian down and just cut it out, and it just fits right into place, and it matches the drawing for this.
A lot of value engineering in this building with the doors and the kitchen setup.
Yeah, I mean, my mom's like, Jimmy, where's the trash compactor? Where's the, you know, garbage disposal? I mean, Mom, they were living in a tent. This is for the homeless, okay?
Yeah, affordable housing is the idea. So people start putting all these frills on, and no longer is something that's affordable.
No, we tried to keep the cost down on here. Consequently, there's no doors in here. We just use curtains. But this is a $13,000 deal. That's that's all the materials. That's the paint, the mirrors, the lighting, the windows, not including labor. But you have a day of labor, $100 an hour for your print crew. You got $800 of labor. And then you got a week to do the rest. Throw up some trussing, put your lid on, taping and so forth. So little bathroom, could have made that a little bit bigger, but that was the cool thing of doing this, that they said, yeah, let's extend this a foot bigger so we have a shower area. And then here in the bedroom, 2 more feet that way, big deal, $50 more in material, but 2 more feet that way would have allowed you to have a queen in here. We can print this in a day, we can finish it in 2 weeks, and you have a product that somebody could put $3,000 down and $350 a month and own it in 7 years.
Thank you so much for giving me a tour through this House Zero. It's so incredible to see kind of like the outer reaches of what this technology is capable of when you kind of with no reservations throw it all at the wall and make a design that's with the intent of inspiring awe and creating an experience.
For us, we always come back to this idea, it's like we're trying to solve the global housing crisis, because There's a lot of cost and margin in the supply chain of concrete, it turns out. There's a lot of cost and margin in the supply chain of concrete, it turns out. There's a lot of cost and margin in the supply chain of concrete, it turns out. And it's not clear that they're adding a lot of value. It's sort of like it came in one side, it went out the other side, and there's like a huge margin that gets added, and the value that was added in that step doesn't seem to be proportional to the charge, except that they just can because they're the only ones doing it. Not wicked people, they're trying to run a good business. I'm not sort of mad about it, but what I'm driven to do is radically lower the cost, radically lower the cost, radically lower the cost and time of construction. So
the material, has it changed, the material of this house versus the other homes on 17th Street?
There are always changes, but there are changes that would, it's more or less the same material, but we're maybe sourcing a certain sand from somewhere slightly different because we like its performance better, or we found a supply that's closer to home, it reduces shipping costs. But it's like the basic formula is the same. There will be a big shift in formulation after the Lennar project. So we're going to hold what we got because it's really well tested and well understood through the Lennar project. We are going to be doing a big reformulation. Mostly driven by a process that I don't want to say too much about, but it involves us like both simplifying the mix, and then getting further up into the supply chain to control cost and supply.
I'm going to say batch plant mixer, and we can look back in a couple of years and see if it's relevant.
That's amazing. Yeah. But next time we talk, you can see. But we expect it to we expect it to cut our costs more than in half. By number one, simplifying the mix.
Take a look at the building industry. Cement is the most significant material you use, right? And replacing that with plastics, because once you're building something, you need a binding agent that is cement. Now we replace that binding agent for plastics. So we shake it for any air molecules to escape. From the few tests we conducted, the compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks. So if you have a brick this strong in those areas, which means that it would increase the lifespan, it would increase the duration to which there is road maintenance. So as it's pouring the sand into the mixture, it gets kind of thick. Sand.
This is melted plastic mixed with sand, and it becomes as hard as concrete.
The process to having an eco-friendly rooftop starts with collecting a lot of sand.
It must be river sand without any particles. We must get fine sand. Even after this, we sieve it as we shall see.
Many plastics have also got to be collected to be mixed with the sand. They are shredded before being mixed with the sand. To make a soluble tile, it has got to go through the sand dryer, where all the moisture in the sand is gotten rid of.
Because once this one is bonded and it's a strong thing, then you cannot easily break it. This machine is a mixer. We have more sand in the tiles than the plastics, because plastics are to act as a bonding agent, just to hold the sand together.
It is then wheeled off to the paste maker, which at high temperatures ensures that the tile is fire and heat resistant.
If you melted this one at a low temperature, that means even the sunshine and so on would affect it at the end. Minimal heat that will go is because of that sand, because of the sand. So if this one, you don't need insulation, you don't need a ceiling, unless you want the ceiling just for purposes of beauty.
It comes out as a paste, heated sand mixed with plastic. Production ends with this molding machine. In about 2 minutes, it is ready. When it cools after about 2 minutes, it is taken for trimming.
We have a 2.2 kilogram tile. Very hard.
And they're said to be good water harvesters. Being non-water absorbents, the risk of dew, algae and fungus is almost eliminated, and this ensures clearer water. The fact that they are bigger means that less wood will be used while putting up the roof, thus saving the trees in the environment. Plastics are fire retardants. They are not good conductors of heat, and this is advantageous as it doesn't allow heat to go through them. During the whole process, however, there is waste that is generated.
Now, if this paste takes more than 5 minutes here, it is going to become as hard as this, which is called a reject, just like these peelings of the final product. But does it mean that this is waste that is going back to the environment? No, it is all recycled from within, and the process begins again.
This shredding machine breaks them into small pieces.
We bring scrap from out, but we don't take anything out. The only thing we take out are the stones and few things that we have got from the natural environment.
The eco-friendly resin tiles or sand and plastic tiles have been under taste in Uganda for 3 years now after getting the concept from South Africa.
To see whether it can fade, whether it can be affected by the sun, whether anything and so on. Somebody inside there will not feel the heat that goes through it.
And what you see here behind me, which I guess you were about to ask me, Jared, is we're live here at World of Concrete in Las Vegas, where we're actually 3D printing live building elements as we speak. At Cobalt, we produce and manufacture 3D construction printers, and we have partnered with 2 other great organizations in making this come alive. So number one is a materials expert. They're providing the 3D printing mix, that's Quick Read companies. And the other company that we're working with, which is We Print Homes, builder and developer. Perfect trio here of a technology provider, a materials expert, and a contractor actually using this technology.
Talk about some of the reasons the layers look so good today on this print.
A lot to say with regards to the team. So we have a really good team here with a lot of knowledge and expertise. Also, secondly, the materials, of course, also very important. Partnering with Quick Read, being one of the pioneers within 3D printed mixes, that of course also helps quite a lot. And yes, Jared, it does look really, really smooth today. I'm very, very satisfied.
One thing you mentioned when I first got on this site that wasn't at the last project I visited is the new batch plant mixer. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm not sure if you can actually see the batch plant here in the shot, but down there to the left, I'll just explain it. We have a concrete batch plant. Now, this concrete batch plant, in essence, allow you to mix your own concrete using locally sourced materials. So you would use your locally sourced sand, gravel and cement, of course also water, to mix that concrete locally. Now, but here at Cobalt, we're very agnostic when it comes to materials, so we're fully open source. So you can either do that, mixing your own locally sourced concrete, but you can also use a dry mix such as Quick Read, which we're using here today. So, and there are pros and cons to each system, but for us as technology provider, it's very, very important that we allow our customers to choose which type of material that they want to do.
And recently you had a huge announcement, material-based, about a defab material. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So when we're talking about the concrete batch plant here, what we have developed together with Cemex. So Cemex is, I believe, a top 5 global cement manufacturer. What we've developed is a solution that will make, you can take locally sourced concrete, mix that, add in the additives, and then make it 3D printable. Because you will not be able to actually 3D print using regular concrete. You have to work it in order to make it 3D printable. And now that's the balance you really want to have. There's a balance between, you could say, 2 poles. One is you want it to be fluid enough that you can actually have it come through the hose, as you see there, from the batch plant over here down to the print nozzle. But on the other hand, you also want, when the mix is extruded here in the layers, you want it to set such that the layers stack on top of each other and it all doesn't slump out.
In about 2 minutes, it is ready. In about 2 minutes, it is ready. In about 2 minutes, it is ready.
Now, if this paste takes more than 5 minutes here, it is going to become as hard as this. Now, if this paste takes more than 5 minutes here, it is going to become as hard as this. Now, if this paste takes more than 5 minutes here, it is going to become as hard as this.
And it becomes as hard as concrete. And it becomes as hard as concrete. And it becomes as hard as concrete.
The compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than in normal concrete bricks.
About simplifying the mix, about simplifying the mix, about simplifying the mix, radically lower the cost, radically lower the cost, radically lower the cost.
And optimize the technology. Because I get the feeling we are only doing like a really small portion of it, and there's so much potential that this technology has that we are yet to realize, and this is just the beginning.
I'm back in Utah at the Mudbots facility, and I'm really excited to show you the first batch plant mixer that we featured on this channel. Mudbots has been developing technology to stop using continuous flow mixers and begin a much more advanced technology that'll automate more of the process and allow the machine to create custom batches depending on the humidity, sunlight, and other parameters of your print day. Mixer pump systems that weren't specifically built for concrete are one of the biggest pain points on a 3D printed construction site. That's why it's so important to develop solutions that can be automated at scale. The mixer pump system is a very manual process right now. A system like this, in the beginning, will be run manually, but once they collect enough regional data, everything can be automated with sensors, and it won't require anybody at the mixer pump system at all.
And then after that, it's fed on the extruder.
This machine heats the plastic and sand mixture until it's soft enough to mold.
This is one of my proudest moments as a person, as a team member, and also as the founder of Jijenge. So what you see here, the machine and all the others, we fabricated here in Jijenge. It is mixed together at very high temperatures. So it ranges anything from 300 to 400 degrees centigrade, where it mixes that plastic and sand and forms a gooey, like a dough-like material. And that's what we make the brick with.
What's going on here, Kyle?
This is our first batch plant, first production batch plant. We got 7 hoppers, a sand hopper, 2 bulk material hoppers. So we got a cement hopper and a lime hopper. 99% of the time, that's what you're going to be using them for. And then you can put powdered or granulated additives in these 4 hoppers back here. So if you want to put plasticizer, fly ash, retardant, accelerant, anything else you need to make your material printable for the conditions that you're expecting when you're printing.
What was one of the big challenges you had to overcome to get this machine working?
Oh man, wet sand does not like to go through a hopper, not at all. So we kind of came up with a couple solutions to that. We've got an agitator in there, we've got a nice wide opening at the bottom, and we went with an auger valve instead of a rotary butterfly valve. And then we also dry out our sand, We've got a, do we have one back there?
No, they bought it.
We've got a large
ribbon
drum that
ribbon mixer.
Yeah, ribbon mixer, and we hook a heater up to it, and it's basically like a drying machine for your sand, drying machine for your sand, drying machine for your sand, drying machine for your sand.
To make a soluble tile, it has got to go through the sand dryer, where all the moisture in the sand is gotten rid of.
This machine is a mixer. We have more sand in the tiles than the plastics, because plastics are to act as a bonding agent, just to hold the sand together.
It is then wheeled off to the paste maker, which at high temperatures ensures that the tile is fire and heat resistant.
People, they're amazed when they see, wait a minute, I'm printing an entire house and that's the mixer? Absolutely. Small batches. You gotta have small batches.
A world choking on waste and running out of resources. Something has to change.
How can we design an economy where we don't waste all these resources?
Meet the people grabbing opportunities around the world in a new way of doing business where nothing goes to waste. The circular economy will change how we use everyday products and our urban landscape. It could bring massive environmental and financial benefits.
This is just the beginning of really being able to solve a global problem.
It could bring massive environmental and financial benefits. It could bring massive environmental and financial benefits. It could bring massive environmental and financial benefits.
The circular economy is based on 3 key principles: design out waste and pollution, keep materials in use, and regenerate natural systems. And when you apply these principles, there's an opportunity to capture this multi-trillion economic opportunity, while also tackling some of the biggest challenges that we face today around climate change, biodiversity loss, and plastic pollution.
Radically lower the cost, radically lower the cost, radically lower the cost and time of construction. So both simplifying the mix, and then getting further up into the supply chain to control cost and supply.
I'm going to say batch plant mixer, and we can look back in a couple of years and see if it's relevant.
That's amazing. Yeah. But next time we talk, you can see. But we expect it to we expect it to cut our costs more than in half. By number one, simplifying the mix.
The compressive strength was 3 times higher than the normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than the normal concrete bricks. The compressive strength was 3 times higher than the normal concrete bricks.
Sand.
I am here at Nelson Boateng's house. This is not just an ordinary house, it's a house that was built with plastics. Yes, plastics. Within 72 days, he built this house. Now, this is my 3rd interview with him. The first time I interviewed him, he was using plastics to build pavements, and now he has done this. Guys, I am super excited. You know, we're always talking about affordable housing, and this was just under $10,000. Follow me. Hey Nelson!
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
People need even single room house. It's
And it costs less than $10,000. And you built it in 72 days.
Days.
I thought when you're building a house, it takes longer than that. How were you able to do it in 72 days?
Okay, so these bricks, we don't use mortar or cement in laying them.
Okay.
It just interlock with each other with the male and female ends.
Okay.
It's just like a Lego bricks that we fix. So just fixing it. And this house, we built it ourselves. We didn't call any mason or to help us. We build it with school children. Anybody passing around, they are interested to see what we are doing. They will come, hey, come, let's arrange. That's why you see some of the bricks not really straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you got the community to help you.
To help me. So you don't really need to spend much in building this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Believing, yeah? Should we go inside and see what Nelson Boateng has done to this house in 72 days? Wow.
So this is plastics. 13,400 kilos of plastic waste from our gutters and beaches.
You are kidding me.
It's true. It's true.
This is a proper home. And the decoration, so who did all this?
I did everything myself.
So you're interior designer?
Not really, you know. I really want to do things that the ordinary Ghanaian can afford. That is why I try to do things not to bring in more cost.
So obviously the $10,000 is not inclusive of the decoration?
No.
No. So if you were to add the decoration, totally how much would that cost?
About 75 to 80,000 Ghana cedis.
So about 12,000, 15, between
15,000,
$15,000.
Yeah, $15,000, yeah.
And in terms of the house, how many levels can you do?
For now, we can go two levels.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because of the molds that we have.
Okay.
Our cannon molds are made in such a way that they can carry two.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So obviously this is a prototype. Okay?
Prototype. That's why it's just one bedroom, big hall, kitchen combined.
Okay, so it's one bedroom. Can we go and have a look?
Yes, we can go and have a look at it.
This is a small kitchen unit. Guys, this is...
You have everything.
Everything in there. Your gas cooker, your sink.
It looks like cement almost. Not as heavy, but it's sturdy. I wonder what that was.
Yes.
Or that.
Sometimes we have cell phones numbers. We have one number 5, one number 4.
So now that we have all of these bricks, what kind of uses do you have for them?
Imagine wood, you can make the same thing with this kind of material.
And where are these going?
These bricks are going to Cali, and you will see what we're going to do with them.
Recognized globally as the world capital for salsa dancing, the city of Cali, 400 kilometers west of Bogota, is one of great social divide, with 6% of the land area occupied by slums housing 40,000 people.
Yo, esta es mi vida, vida complicada. Estamos en la imba, pero aquí no pasa nada. Estamos sobreviviendo a esta emboscada. Hoy estamos aquí, pero mañana esto se acaba. Oye, para mi gente de Cali.
We've come to Envallado, a neighborhood in the east of Cali, one of the city's most deprived areas.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Eufemia.
Eufemia, esta es tu casa.
Esta es de mí.
Eufemia leads us upstairs to catch up with Oscar and his bricks.
Wow, oh my goodness. The bricks we just saw in the factory, they're actually constructing into a house for someone who lives here in the community. Oscar, the last time I saw you, we were in Bogota at the plant. We were building these things. Now we're here and building. It's amazing. Tell me a little bit about what stage you're at.
Right now we are in the kitchen.
Aha, where many meals will be cooked, I'm sure.
Yes, this is the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
This is the bedroom.
This house cost $5,000 and has been microfinanced by the community for Eufemia, whose son lives in the apartment below.
Pues mi mamá aquí tenía una pieza, pues no estaba en buenas condiciones.
Ajá. Sí, ¿y qué tal de la construcción? Pues es fácil. ¿Cómo
Claro.
es?
Si usted gusta,
Sí.
pega uno y eso es facilito.
Bueno. It's literally like life-size Lego.
Oscar's hope is that this project will generate interest in the community and encourage future collaborations.
Mira, estamos construyendo una casa hecha de ladrillos que son hechos de plástico reciclado. De roca. Looks like rock to them.
Eso con el megáfono y me llamó la atención, me vine y aquí estoy.
Para mí también yo necesito para mi tercer piso.
This I just can't get over. The holes for the electrical outlets and the plumbing. Wire the cable down in and they'll have electricity. So, check it out. It's actually a room now. It's a kitchen.
Este es un closet.
He's telling me this is where the closet's gonna be.
La
with the television on top, if you can imagine it. So all we've got left is the roof and some doors. So we're pretty close. How much plastic is in this house?
In this house, we use 5 tons. Sin compactar ese plástico, puede llegar a ser más o menos del tamaño de un contenedor de 40 pies.
Está bien y bonito. Casa. Pero yo creía que era de esos plásticos que uno recoge.
In just under 2 days, the house is almost complete. The plan is that a family of 4 will be able to put together their own home in less than 5 days.
Sabemos lo que va a pasar acá en este barrio dentro de unos meses, entonces ese tipo de comentarios nos dan todavía más ánimo.
Conceptos Plásticos have already helped to house 42 families displaced by conflict in the town of Guapi, recycling 120 tons of plastic in the process.
Tell me a little bit about the magnitude of impact that this project can have.
If we use just 2% the waste plastic in the world, we can change the life of millions of people. We can finish the housing shortage in Latin America in just 10 years.
That's an enormous number and a huge impact.